Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Growing up, my family dynamic revolved heavily around my younger brother, Max. From the moment he was born, he was the center of attention. Max had some health issues as a child, nothing life-threatening, but enough to make my parents treat him like he was made of glass. Every scraped knee was treated like a broken bone, every sneeze like the onset of a deadly illness. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the responsible older sibling, the one who could handle anything on their own. If Max needed help with his homework, I was the one to step in. If Max wanted the last slice of pizza, it automatically went to him. "He's fragile," my mom would say. "You need to look out for him." As we got older, Max's fragility transformed into entitlement. He became the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. When he struggled in school, it was because his teachers weren't understanding enough. When he got caught shoplifting as a teenager, my parents brushed it off as a phase. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the model child. Straight A's, extracurriculars, and no trouble whatsoever. If I ever faltered, even slightly, my parents would remind me how much better Max had it and how I needed to set a good example. Fast forward to adulthood, and Max is still the same. Except now his health issues have morphed into a convenient excuse for why he can't seem to hold down a job. He's been fired more times than I can count, and it's always someone else's fault. The boss was unfair, the coworkers were mean, the job was too stressful. My parents have always bailed him out, whether it's by paying his rent or buying him a new car when he totaled the last one. Meanwhile, I worked my way through college, got a steady job, and bought my own home without any help. But despite my accomplishments, my parents' focus has always been on Max and his perpetual string of crises. A few months ago, Max called me out of the blue. He sounded frantic. "Hey, I need a favor," he started. "Becca's pregnant, and we're getting evicted. We have nowhere else to go." I was hesitant. Max and his girlfriend, Becca, were not exactly the most reliable people. But the thought of a pregnant woman being homeless tugged at my conscience. My parents downsized a couple of years ago because Max needed a new car and money to cover his rent, so they have no space for Max and Becca. Becca being pregnant triggered a weak spot in me because my ex-girlfriend lost our baby a couple of years ago, so I agreed to let him move in with me under the condition that they would contribute to the household. Whether that meant helping with chores, buying groceries, or paying a small amount of rent once they got back on their feet. Max promised that they'd pull their weight. Spoiler alert, they didn't. From the moment they moved in, it was a nightmare. Max and Becca treated my home like their personal playground. They both stayed up all night playing video games, shouting at the screen and waking me up. They never cleaned up after themselves. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink. Laundry was left strewn across the floor, and the living room was perpetually cluttered with their junk. They ate through their groceries like locusts, leaving me with nothing but crumbs. I'd come home from work, exhausted, only to find the fridge empty and the house a mess. When I confronted them, they'd shrug and say, "We'll clean it up later." Spoiler alert, they never did. On top of all that, neither Max nor Becca made any effort to find a job. They spent their days lounging around the house, glued to the TV or their phones. Every time I brought it up, they'd have an excuse ready. "It's hard to job hunt right now," Max would say. Or, "Becca needs to rest because of the pregnancy." Weeks turned into months, and still, neither of them even filled out a single application. I offered to help them create resumes, gave them job leads, and even suggested places hiring entry-level positions nearby. But no matter what I did, they made it clear they weren't interested in even trying. What really started to bother me, though, was Becca's supposed pregnancy. At first, I didn't think much of it. Not every pregnant woman shows early on, and I'm no expert on pregnancy. But as the months went by, something didn't sit right with me. Becca wasn't gaining any weight. Her belly didn't grow at all. She never mentioned doctor's appointments or ultrasounds, and whenever I asked how the baby was doing, she'd give vague answers like, "Oh, everything's fine." I tried to ignore my suspicions and give them the benefit of the doubt. But as time went on, the inconsistencies became harder to overlook. Becca's energy levels didn't seem to change. She was always up late playing video games or lounging on the couch. She never complained about common pregnancy symptoms like back pain, nausea, or fatigue. I even noticed that she drank soda and ate junk food constantly, which struck me as odd for someone supposedly expecting a baby. Things reached a breaking point around the 7th month of her supposed pregnancy. It had been months of me biting my tongue and trying to be supportive, but I couldn't ignore the glaring inconsistencies any longer. One evening, I decided to bring it up again. I tried to approach the topic delicately. "Hey, I've noticed Becca doesn't have a baby lump. Are you sure everything's okay?" Max's reaction was immediate and defensive. "You don't know anything about pregnant women," he snapped. "Not everyone gets a bump. Stop being so judgmental." Becca chimed in, looking offended. "Yeah, every pregnancy is different. You're making me feel really uncomfortable right now." I felt a pang of guilt. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I really didn't know what I was talking about. But even after their protests, something didn't sit right with me. Their explanations felt rehearsed, their indignation too performative. I decided to let it go, for the moment. A few weeks later, they dropped the bombshell. They had lost the baby. I wanted to feel heartbroken for them. Really, I did. But their announcement was delivered with the same flat, emotionless tone as someone reporting the weather. There were no tears, no signs of grief, just a matter-of-fact statement that left me feeling cold. My suspicions, which I'd tried so hard to suppress, came rushing back. Later that evening, I decided to confront them. "I'm really sorry for your loss," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "But can I ask, did you have any proof of the pregnancy? A test, an ultrasound, anything?" Max's face darkened. "How dare you?" he hissed. "How could you even ask that? We just lost our baby, and you're accusing us of lying?" Becca burst into tears, or at least she made a convincing show of it. "You're so cruel," she sobbed. "You have no idea what it's like to go through something like this." But their theatrics only made me more certain. "I'm sorry," I said firmly, "but I've done everything I can to support you, and I'm done being taken advantage of. If you can't even show me a pregnancy test, then I have no reason to believe you were ever pregnant. You need to pack your bags and leave." Oh dear. Then all hell broke loose. Max screamed at me, calling me heartless and cruel. Becca's sobs grew louder, but I held my ground. I'd spent my entire life cleaning up Max's messes, and I wasn't going to let him drag me down any further. The next day, my mother called me in a fury. "How could you do this to Max and Becca?" she demanded. "How could you kick a grieving woman out onto the streets?" I tried to explain my side, but she wouldn't listen. "Max and Becca are going through the worst thing imaginable, and you're throwing them out? What kind of person are you?" "Mom," I said, exasperated, "have they shown you any proof of the pregnancy? Anything at all? I never heard of them having doctor appointments." Well, that didn't go well. My mother accused me of being cruel, heartless, and a horrible brother. "I've supported Max my entire life," I shot back. "I've cleaned up his messes, given him money, and put my own needs on the back burner for his sake. Letting them live with me was supposed to be a fresh start for them. But instead, it turned into yet another situation where I was being used. I'm done." My mother hung up on me, but she called me the next day threatening to disown me if I didn't apologize and let Max and Becca move back in. But I've made up my mind. If standing up for myself means losing my family, then so be it. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for kicking them out and doubting the pregnancy? OP went above and beyond for his brother and Becca, giving them a place to stay when they were supposedly in need. They took advantage of OP's generosity, didn't contribute anything, and acted entitled. The fact that they can't even provide proof of the pregnancy, combined with their lack of grief over the loss, makes it clear they were trying to manipulate OP. Setting boundaries doesn't make OP cruel. It makes OP strong. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Your brother and Becca completely disrespected your home and your kindness. Letting them live with you was an act of compassion, and they repaid you by freeloading and creating chaos. You have every right to ask for evidence when their story doesn't add up, especially after all their excuses and lies. Don't let anyone guilt you into sacrificing your peace for people who don't deserve it. Max and Becca have shown zero effort to improve their situation or respect your support. It's one thing to help family in a genuine crisis, but this was clearly not the case here. They've manipulated you and your mother, and it sounds like you've been cleaning up Max's messes for far too long. You're absolutely justified in standing up for yourself. Good on you for finally drawing the line. Family doesn't mean enabling bad behavior. You gave them every chance to get their act together, and they chose to freeload and lie. Your brother and Becca's inability to prove the pregnancy and their odd behavior make it clear they were taking advantage of you. Don't let your mother's guilt trips get to you. She's been enabling Max his whole life, and now she's trying to rope you into the same pattern. Me, 49 male. My wife Nick, 46 female. My daughter Beth, 29 female. My ex-wife Lisa, 48 female. Lisa's husband Bob, 39 male. My ex-wife Lisa and I were childhood sweethearts. We got pregnant early on. Our parents were supportive because our families knew each other very well. I had taken up jobs to take care of my family after finishing studies. Lisa cheated on me with Bob and left me for him. She abandoned our daughter, who was 16 at the time. I worked as a trucker for a few years that made Beth attached to Lisa. It was during that time her affair began. She was mad at Lisa for this, but at the same time, she couldn't live without her. Lisa didn't want any custody arrangement except for visitation rights. I met my current wife, Nick, 3 years after my divorce. We hit it off and have been inseparable since. So Nick got pregnant, and that was when my world started going downhill after divorce. Beth was furious. She called Nick names and all sorts of degrading stuff you can think of. It didn't come as a surprise because Lisa already had a kid with Bob. I firmly told Beth she needs to stop calling Nick names. I proposed to Nick after 6 months of pregnancy. When we told Beth about it, she began throwing a tantrum about how I was breaking this family. I tried to talk to her, but she threw a glass right at Nick. I saved Nick, but it hit my hand. I asked Beth to leave. She went to Bob and Lisa's and stayed there. This was about 9 years ago. We've been in little contact with Beth from there. She never wanted to see me or Nick or our son, but she was completely free with Bob and Lisa. I wasn't even invited to her wedding, just to give a view how apart we've drifted. Whenever I'd invite her for holidays, she'll turn me down. This brings us to here. 4 days ago, Beth contacted me out of the blue. Her husband had been cheating on her and she's pregnant. He's kicking her out and filing for divorce, and she needs a place to stay. This was the first time she, by herself, called me. I told her I don't think I can let her stay here with me. I need to ask my wife to see what she thinks of it. She began screaming at me that I was prioritizing my wife over her and that I was leaving her at her worst. I firmly reminded her that she left me in my worst period. She abandoned me. She was rude to my pregnant wife, fiancé at that time. She broke me and didn't even invite me to her wedding, but invited Bob. She ended the call. I spoke to my wife and left her a text that though she can't stay here, I'll be happy to pay for a place for her to rent. She didn't want me to do anything and blocked me. Truthfully, I'm still angry at Beth that she never tried to apologize for how she treated me and Nick. I've talked to Nick and she isn't comfortable with Beth being around us. I can't have her because we have 2 kids, one a 2-year-old. Lisa can't have her around as Bob is dead and Lisa works 2 jobs. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I would ordinarily say that a parent has a responsibility to their children, no matter what. But in this case, that means your current 2-year-old, not your adult child. You can't bring chaos into your home when a 2-year-old is your responsibility first, and chaos is what it would be. Feel free to help if you can for your grandchild's sake, if nothing else, but do not have her directly in your life. Not the a-hole. Lisa can't have her because what now? I call absolute BS. Lisa has more than enough room to house the daughter she alienated from you. Lisa can suck it up. She's working 2 jobs? What does that have to do with anything? As for Beth, I understand she's your child, but every decision she's made has firmly cemented that you are no one and nothing to her. Let's keep that same energy. In my house, we treat others the way we want to be treated. Not the a-hole. Some of her earlier action could be due to the circumstance and her mom, but not now. She is a grown woman. She knows right from wrong. It sounds like you tried to build a relationship with her, but she was the one who blocked and destroyed it. Plus, you didn't tell her no and leave her high and dry. You offered her accommodations. She was the one who refused. And there is no reason she couldn't stay with her mom. Bob's dead. Mom works. So, she's not a child who needs babysat. She wants to be catered to. I, 16 female, live with my mom, 40 female, and stepfather, 52 male. I don't know who my dad is. I have one stepbrother and two half-sisters. I don't want any legal or any kind of advice. I only need your judgment. My stepfather is overly strict with me, mainly because I'm not his daughter, but also because I don't let him give me crap. He's an ex-military and has this stupid mindset that discipline is everything, and we must listen to him at all times. We have to call him sir. I try not to be here as much as I can. I have a job, an extracurricular, and I help my grandparents, my mom's parents, at their house with their housework and their pets. My grandparents are really sweet with me. I love them very much, and my granddad defends me from my stepfather when he crosses the line. FYI, no, I can't move with them. I have a boyfriend, 17 male, called Mike. We've been dating for 8 months now, and I introduced him to my grandparents first. He's a good guy, kind, smart, and funny. I decided to introduce him to my mom 3 months ago at dinner. My stepfather behaved horribly. He kept asking Mike a bunch of questions, and then tried to pick a fight. My boyfriend is bigger than my stepfather, but he decided to leave before things went bad. Ever since then, he has forbid me to bring him home because he didn't like him, giving excuses like he knows guys like him, he was rude, etc. I did respect his rule until the last instance that caused this whole problem. Mike discussed with his father yesterday, and he came to my home asking for comfort. My mom was here, and since she saw how distraught he was, she allowed him to come to my room and talk. I left my door open. In between this, Mike cried and hugged me, resting his head in my chest, and that's how my stepfather found us. There was a lot of yelling. I left with Mike for 15 minutes, and when I came back, my door was gone. My stepfather said that that's what I deserved for disrespecting his rule. My mom did tell him that she gave Mike a pass, but my stepfather was having none of it. He berated me for a few minutes until he called me a B. When he let me go to my room, I called my granddad, and he came here ASAP. Long story short, he took my parents' door and installed it in my room. Then he took me out to eat so we could talk better. When I came back again, my stepfather said that me and my granddad humiliated him in front of his children. My stepbrother called me an a-hole, and while my mother apologized with me for what my stepfather did, she said I was wrong because family problems must stay here. Not the a-hole. Your granddad is your rock. Family problems must stay here? Your granddad is a more authentic member of your family than your stepfather is. And moving that door from your parents' room to your room? Priceless. Not the a-hole. Your grandpa sounds excellent. Your mother, not so much. She really doesn't take a stand for you, does she? She's the one who has to tell him that she gave you permission to bring your boyfriend inside. That's who he needs to talk to, not take your door. Not the a-hole. Your stepfather sounds like the kind of guy that would high-five his son for getting laid, but scream at his daughter for being a W if a man accidentally touched her butt in a crowd. The fact he was silent as a church mouse while your grandfather took his door for your room shows he's just a jerk, and you are the easiest target being both female and not his child. Your mother telling you to keep family problems in the family is just a recipe for you to be a victim of aggression. No, you do not keep family issues in when someone is treating you like crap. Me, 42 female, and my husband have a daughter, Kate, 15, and a son, Sam, 9. My husband has a brother and a sister, Eva, 40 female. Eva and her husband James have a daughter, Allegra, also 15. Kate and Allegra have always been compared in the family. From the time they were born, it seemed to be a competition of who would walk first, talk first, do more, achieve more, and Allegra was always first. I won't go too much into detail about Allegra because that's not really the point, but I will say she's a beautiful, intelligent, truly one-of-a-kind girl, and her parents have done a great job raising her. My in-laws fell in love with her and think she hung the moon. This bothered me and made me sad for Kate, but I let it go for the most part. There's no doubt in my mind that they love all the kids equally, but out of the two girls, you can tell who they admire more. Every summer, the whole family visits a holiday home that Eva shares with my in-laws. Over the summer, Kate met a boy, Luke, who was also holidaying in the area. They started dating. This was Kate's first experience with boys. Allegra had friends who were nearby, so for our first few weeks, we didn't see her much. About 3/4 of the way through the holiday, Kate invited the boy she'd been seeing to dinner. Allegra was told to come, and afterwards she would be going to a party. At the dinner, it was clear that Luke was very attracted to Allegra. After dinner, Luke decided he would go to the party Allegra was going to as he had also been invited. They both asked Kate to go, but she wasn't allowed and was very upset. The next morning, Allegra came downstairs and asked to talk to me and Eva. She said at the party Luke was flirting with her and showed her some messages he'd sent her. We decided we would all talk to Kate. Kate spent the next 2 days miserable. When she finally came out of her room, Kate was caustic, and everyone was getting a bit fed up with her attitude. Eventually, my father-in-law jokingly said, "Your mistake was introducing him to Allegra. How did you think that was going to go for you?" My mother-in-law told him off, but added that Luke handled it terribly, but the outcome was sort of inevitable. Kate left the table in tears. We managed to get through the rest of the holiday, but when my husband brought up plans for Christmas, Kate refused to go. She said she couldn't bear being ridiculed by her own family and constantly compared to Allegra. After seeing how much this was affecting her, I spoke to my husband and said we shouldn't go. He argued that it would be wrong to let Kate take away time with family just because of a boy. I reminded him that this has been happening since they were born, but he said that we can't shield Kate from every special person in the world. He said he would talk to his parents about their comments, but that we should not set a precedent of letting Kate run away from reality. I don't agree, and have half a mind to stay home with Kate and let my husband and son go without us. Would I be the a-hole? Edit. For everyone asking why Kate was not allowed to go to the party, my husband and I felt it was not a safe or appropriate environment at her age. Eva informed us, because she knows we do not allow Kate into these environments, that it was an adult party where there would be drinking and possibly other things going on. Allegra has grown up in a place where these kind of things are much more normal, and Eva and her husband made the choice to let Allegra live those experiences. From what I know and have seen, she handles it exceptionally, and it has not caused any issues. However, it is not the way we have chosen to parent Kate, and so we didn't allow her to go. Not the a-hole. The in-laws are awful people. Your mistake introducing him to Allegra is ducking gross. Allegra also knew Kate had this huge thing for Luke, so why'd she insist on hanging out with Luke at this party she knew Kate couldn't go to, and gave him her phone number? Allegra seems very, very much like she knows she's the favored one and thinks it's cute and dandy. You are not the a-hole because you're valuing your child's feelings and actually trying to support her. I wouldn't want to go back to a place where I'm being told stuff like that. I don't care how beautiful and wonderful Allegra is. Your daughter is beautiful and wonderful as well, and nobody, I mean nobody, should make her feel like she's in competition like that. Did your husband bump his head? This has nothing to do with a boy. It's because his family keeps putting her down. Doesn't matter if they mean it or not. They are destroying her self-esteem and killing her on the inside. And to top it off, he not only is allowing it, he is not defending her. He is telling her that their opinion is far more important than her mental health and her feelings. Talk about Father of the Year. I wouldn't make her go. I would make other plans with her to go somewhere else. Then let her start counting down the days until she will be exposed to their toxicity again. God, his family sucks. You are not the a-hole, but your husband is an unbelievable one. Not the a-hole. Honestly, you've let Kate get pushed around by her grandparents long enough. You probably should have put your foot down before it got to this point, but what they said after the Luke incident was extremely rude and entirely unacceptable. At this point, I cannot blame Kate if she didn't want a relationship with her grandparents anymore. She's been torn down by them all her life and not had people standing up for her, especially her father. It's her father's job to protect and stand up for her, not to excuse his parents' execrable behavior. This isn't Kate running away from reality. This is her setting a completely reasonable boundary with people who have pushed her around her entire life. I had grandparents who did the same to me, and I can tell you, this takes a huge toll on your self-esteem, something that I have struggled with my entire adult life. You don't want this for your daughter. I am 38 female and have a daughter, V, 13. I have a close friend, Charlie, who has a daughter, Amanda, also 13, with his wife, Olivia. I've known Charlie for nearly 20 years, since before he was with Olivia, and while she and I have never been close, I thought we had a deep abiding respect and warmth for one another. Our kids are very close, and Charlie and his family often visit us at our homes, and when we're near where they live, we see them. At the beginning of the summer, Charlie, Olivia, and Amanda, along with their other 2 sons, came to stay with my family. They were there for 2 weeks, but when it was time to go, both V and Amanda pleaded for Amanda to be allowed to extend her stay. My husband and I were fine with this, as was Charlie, but Olivia wasn't keen. Eventually, she was convinced by Charlie, and Amanda stayed with us until about a week before school started again. Since then, Charlie has mentioned a couple of times that Amanda has asked for different kinds of food that she tried while with us, and that she's asked for a couple of expensive items. She even asked if she could try horse riding, and Charlie has joked several times about me corrupting her, but it was definitely a joke. 2 days ago, I received several walls of text from Olivia. She said that since staying with us, Amanda has become divorced from reality. Olivia says Amanda now wants things they can't afford, will not help around the house, and complains about everything from their cars to her clothes. She said that I must have spoiled Amanda by giving her expensive gifts. I bought her one designer item as a souvenir on a day trip we took, as I was getting one for Vi, and it seemed unfair for Amanda to get nothing, and encouraged a superficial lifestyle. She also said Amanda has asked to join a gym and be taken to a dermatologist, and accused me of making Amanda insecure, which I absolutely did not. V has seen a dermatologist and probably mentioned it to Amanda, but I doubt it was in a nasty way. Finally, she said that I had completely alienated Amanda from their family, as nothing they do seems to be good enough now, and she keeps saying that she misses being with our family and wishes she'd been born V's sister. Apparently, Amanda said she wants to come back to ours for her school's half-term break, and that I invited her, which I did in passing, if it was okay with her parents. Olivia said as a mother, I should have known better than to spoil a child that's not mine, and that it must have been my intention to turn her against us. I was hurt by what she said and told Charlie. He says she's overreacting because most of what Amanda has been saying has been directed at her mother, and Olivia is just at her wit's end. He said he'll talk to her and that I shouldn't worry, but I'm beginning to wonder if I've done something wrong. A friend of mine said she understands why Olivia would feel slighted, even if she overreacted. Am I the a-hole? All of Amanda's new behaviors honestly sound like her just being a teenager. More than likely, it has nothing to do with her extended stay with your family. It sounds to me like Olivia is frustrated and needs someone to blame, not the a-hole. She might not like it, but she's just realizing that her family is comparatively poor and that there are limits to the lifestyle they can afford. That isn't her fault. That isn't your fault. Not very nice for the mother to take it out on you, though. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Welcome to the world of raising teenage girls, where your little angels turn into monsters. It's hormonal, and I'd bet if it wasn't you, Amanda would find another person to hate her mom. It's a rite of passage, sad but true for many families.